and welcome back to our fourth and final New Now Next Fall 2018 launch event of the day. I'm John, and with me here is Ryan McCardle to talk about indoor air quality. Now, in our last video, we talked with Sam from Honeywell about what's new, now, and next in zoning and hydronics. Make sure you check it out if you missed it. Now, if you have questions or comments for myself or Ryan, please add them below the video, and we'll do our best to speak to them. Now, let's get to it, shall we? Ryan, welcome. Thanks for coming out today.
John, pleasure to be here.
Good to see you. Now, why don't you tell the folks at home there a little about yourself and what you do at Honeywell?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said, I'm Ryan. I am the product manager for indoor air quality products for Honeywell. Pleasure to be here today with you and those of you watching.
Awesome. Well, I have a lot of questions because for me, IAQ stands for I Ask Questions.
All right, John.
Right, so I got a lot of them, but I've heard that you're the person who has the answers. So as we're talking about indoor air quality to start off, why don't you give us a quick overview of what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I'm talking and I think about indoor air quality, there's actually two aspects that I think about. And the first is the particles and the stuff that's in your air. With the football season coming up, you know, go Vikings, right? Have you ever been sitting on the couch on a Sunday afternoon watching football, and there's been a beam of light that has come through,
yes,
and you have seen all of the particles and stuff that floats in your air, right? So that's the first part, is dealing with all those particles, mold spores, bacteria, viruses, dust, dander, pollen, things like that, that's in your air. The second aspect is actually more of a comfort and control aspect. And what I mean by that is I want you to think of like fresh air. So I don't know if you know this, but houses actually have to breathe just like you and I. Oh yeah. So what
do you mean by that? Like that they have to breathe?
So it's proper ventilation, right? So a house actually needs to expel the old, stale, stagnant air and actually bring in fresh air, just like you and I, bring in fresh air, expel all the CO2.
Got it. So
fresh air is one, ventilation is one, and then also probably the most popular aspect and topic of IAQ is actually proper humidification. So when we're talking IAQ, kind of all encompassing of those things that I just mentioned.
Sure, so that's a lot. We're gonna dig into this here. So IAQ is obviously important all year round, but it's especially important as we head into the heating season. And can you talk a little bit about why that is?
Yeah, absolutely, John. So there's two things that I want to mention. One is proper humidification as for winter, and then the other is kind of a cold and viruses, and we'll talk about both. So you and I, both from Minnesota, right? We're dealing with the hot, humid summer days now, but you and I can attest to, it starts to get cold, and with that cold, usually the dry air comes, right?
Of course.
And with that dry air, I don't know about you, but if I don't have my humidifier running in my house, I get dry throats, itchy skin, bloody noses, and things like that. Not only that, but I played the guitar. I don't know if you play any musical
I play guitar as
well.
well.
Do you? Okay, awesome. Yeah. So if you have a dry house, it actually can be detrimental to some of those hardwood assets that you want to protect, right?
Certainly.
Hardwood floors, paintings, musical instruments, things like that. And the other thing that why it's important to have proper IAQ as we head into the winter, flu seasons. Cold, right? You don't want little Timmy and Susie coming home from kindergarten and spreading all those viruses and stuff throughout your house.
Sure.
So proper IAQ as we're heading into the winter is really important.
That's good to know. And the assets thing is something that I hadn't really thought about, because I think we do often think about how it affects us physically. Like you said, cold and flu season, dry skin, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, in the same way that the house needs to breathe, you need all of your assets, like you said, hardwood floors, artwork, musical instruments and things. They also need to breathe and have proper humidification as well.
Yep, and proper protection. I'm not a huge musical person, but I can imagine if I had a grand piano or a really expensive musical instrument, I would want to make sure that I'm protecting that adequately.
Absolutely. So speaking of humidification, let's start there. And talk a little bit about what whole house humidification is versus those portable units that you see a lot during the year.
So John, really whole house humidification is exactly what it says. It is a whole house solution. Whereas in comparison, those portable units are really only a solution for maybe one room or one area of the house. So by having a whole house humidifier, you are actually providing proper humidification to the entire house. You're having better control as you're controlling it through your thermostats, and then you're also not having to deal with the cleaning and maintenance that you would have to with those portable units.
Right. Now, do you think that most customers understand the difference between the whole house humidification and the portable unit?
You know, I can tell you that if they installed one over the other, they definitely would. For those portable units, you know, you crank it up to level 10 or whatever it may be, waking up in the middle of the night, seeing condensation on your walls, on the windows, and then walking into another area of the house and it being completely dry. That's the difference between a whole house humidifier and one of those portable units.
Sure. So, on the subject of whole house humidification, there are really two types. There's evaporative and steam.
Yeah.
Now, what's the difference between those two?
So, great question. Those are the two primary types of whole house humidification products. Let's talk about evaporative first.
Sure.
So, evaporative humidification works on the principle or physics of evaporation. If you could think of a sponge, a wet sponge mounted kind of on your duct, okay? How evaporative humidifiers work is warm air is actually pulled past that wet sponge, and in that process, the moisture on the sponge is actually wicked or evaporated up and into the ductwork. So now in comparison to steam, steam humidifiers actually work by having a heating element within the humidifier itself. And that heating element works to create steam within the unit, and then that steam is actually injected into the duct and distributed throughout the house.
Got it. So now how do the pros know which one to offer in relationship to a particular customer?
So it all depends upon the customer that they're working with, right? You know, there's a wide selection of product offerings for a wide selection of customers. For customers that are looking for a high performance, high-end solution, HM750 steam is the only way to go. However, our evaporative humidifiers also work very well.
Sure. So speaking of the HM750, that's a new product to the Honeywell lineup in the steam category, and it's the Advanced Electrode Humidifier. So why is that HM750, the Advanced Electrode Humidifier, great for homeowners?
So it's really the only solution for homeowners that are looking to quickly and accurately hit the humidification set point that they have in the house.
Okay. Great. And then what about contractors? What benefits would be for the contractors?
So contractors, this thing, the primary feature of HM750 that is just out of this world is that it's actually duct mountable. Oh. And the reason why that's awesome is because of two reasons. The first is application flexibility. You're walking into mechanical rooms. I don't know about you, but my mechanical room is probably about the size of this desk, right? Not a lot of space to mount and move things around. So having that versatility to actually be able to mount it on the duct or on the wall is a huge plus and bonus for this. Also, in addition to that, mounting it on the duct saves a significant amount of installation time for these guys because they don't have to worry about that rubber hosing, getting the angle right, getting the length right, and things like that. All they have to do is mount it on the duct, cut the hole, insert the nozzle, and they're good to go.
That's great. So an easy install and a convenient install, and then also it sounds like that means it's got a small footprint.
Oh, absolutely. So I can actually carry this thing around like a baby when I'm showing it around.
Nice.
I don't have any kids yet, but it's good practice, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so,
right, sure.
So one-man installations, by having a small footprint, is awesome.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about the diagnostics then. What are the diagnostics on this particular product?
So on the actual front of the unit, there's an LED status indicator lights. And there's actually a couple different lights. One of them actually indicate the status of the unit and what it's currently running in. So it will actually give feedback to the homeowner or the contractor what state the device is in. In addition to that, there's actually a service indicator lights to let the homeowner or contractor know if there's any service or anything that needs to be done to the unit.
That's great. So again, it's one of those things that it's not only easy to install, it's easy to maintain. You know what's going on with the unit, and that helps everybody, the contractor, the homeowner.
Oh yeah, absolutely, John.
So steam, you know, much like a steamer, it's taking the wrinkles out of your air.
Good try, John.
Okay, moving on. So we've talked about humidification, and we've talked extensively about the different products there. We're now going to move into air filtration. And we're going to talk about this in terms of another important aspect of IAQ. So quickly explain what whole house filtration looks like.
So I like to explain this, John, as kind of the house in the living space, as the breeding ground for poor IAQ. Okay, so you, a clean-cut guy, you look fabulous, okay?
Thank you.
But you are a source of poor IAQ. Hair, dust, things like that, okay? If you have dogs, cats, pets, by opening the windows, allergens, pollen and things get in. So that living space of the house is actually the source of poor IAQ. So how whole house filtration works is there is typically a filter installed on the return ductwork of your HVAC system. And when the HVAC system is running, that filter acts as a trap or a filter for all of those things that are in the air that you don't want them to be. And then on the outside of that filter, on the supply side of the HVAC system, is clean air that has been filtered by that filter.
Excellent. So it's my understanding that in whole house filtration, there are really two main types. You've got media and electronic. So when would the Comfort Pro recommend one over the other?
Well, similar to the humidification offerings, it depends upon the customer and what they're looking for, the solution that they're looking for. Media filters are the most common, and they're what most people think of when they think of furnace filters. Media filters are that physical filter that actually trap particles as they pass through the filter. And electronic filters are actually filters that ionize or charge the air to collect the particles as they pass through them.
Excellent. So moving on then to break down each of those, Honeywell has two offerings for media filtration solutions, the F100 and F200. What can you tell us about those?
Well, John, the F100, let's start there, okay?
Sure.
Actually has a Merv rating of 11, and our F200 actually has a Merv rating of 13. These are our standard 4-inch media filters. Actually, do you know what Merv means?
You know, I have an idea of what I think Merv means, and the Merv rating is that at Honeywell, they have a guy named Merv, and he sits in a room, and all day he eats garlic. You guys hand him a filter, somebody stands on the other side of Merv, he blows through it. If you can smell the garlic on the other side, that filter is nixed. You can't have that filter, right? That's the Merv?
Not quite, not quite. So Merv rating, in simple terms, John, I'll tell you, the higher the Merv rating, the smaller the particle that'll actually be caught by the filter.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go back to the F100 and 200, 11 and 13 for the 100 and 200, okay? And then these media filters actually typically last about 4 times longer than your standard 1-inch media filter.
Okay.
So that's a service life of 6 to 12 months, where typically with a 1-inch filter, you're supposed to replace it about every 3 months.
Sure. So again, value.
Convenience. And it comes with that 5-year warranty, of course.
That's even better.
Yeah.
So let's talk then about the one offering that you have for electronic filtration, which is the F300.
Yep.
Now, what are the highlights of the F300?
So unlike standard media filtration, the F300 is an electronic air cleaner, an EAC, another acronym to throw at you, okay?
Yeah, awesome.
And how electronic air cleaners, or the F300 works, is through, nerd out a little bit here, okay, through an ionization process. Okay. All right, and what that means is that when air is actually passed into the filter, that air is charged, okay? So the particles within that air are charged, and then they actually stick to the plates, the electrically charged plates that are in the F300.
So what's the maintenance like then on those plates?
So this is a high-end, high-performance, renewable, low-maintenance solution. Unlike your standard media filters that need to be replaced at whatever service level, these F300, all you need to do is pop out the filter cleaners and then put them in a sink or a dishwasher to wash off all of that collected dust and particulates and things like that. Dry it off, put it back in the filter cabinet, and you're good to go.
That's great. Now, would I also be correct in assuming that this F300 has an even higher percentage of how it filters the air.
You're absolutely correct, John. Yes. So the F300 actually captures 99% of the airborne particles.
That's nearly 100.
Yeah, nearly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's good. So now that we've covered air filtration, I want to move on now to the last category, which is air purification.
Yeah.
So what exactly is purification, and really how is it different than filtration?
John, that's great, because this can actually be a little bit of a complicated subject.
All right, I'm ready.
So filtration and purification are a little bit different. So remember when we were talking about you sitting on the couch watching football?
Yes.
And all of those particulates and stuff like that that gets trapped by your filter?
Right.
There's some stuff that actually gets by that filter. I want you to think viruses and mold spores and bacteria and things like that.
Okay.
Air purification is the process of eliminating those things that necessarily maybe didn't get caught by the filter.
Wow. Now, there's something called VOCs.
VOCs,
right?
Yep.
And I think, as I've been looking for information about VOCs, that I'm pretty sure that it means very orange chicken.
So
right?
you were, I mean, just really close.
Okay.
Let me maybe
Okay.
volatile organic compounds. Okay, John. So I'll give you
volatile organic.
Yeah. So let's maybe
compounds.
write.
Okay.
Let's see, write that down.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm putting that right here. It's
Yes.
not very orange
It's not.
chickens.
And what a good example of that is I'm in the process of refinishing the hardwoods in my house. So I've got
sure.
hardwood floors. Volatile organic compounds. You know, when you put the lacquer down on the hardwood
Yes,
floors,
yes.
what comes with that?
Well, there's a strong smell.
Yes, exactly. So VOCs are those smells, those organic compounds that you don't want to smell, you don't want in your house, and they can actually be, you know, a hazard for your health.
Sure, absolutely. That's why they tell you to wear those breathers
Exactly.
when you're doing that,
Right.
right? Yeah. So now, Honeywell's superstar purification solution is the UV Air Purifier with Air Bright odor absorption.
Yeah.
That's a whole lot of stuff packed into a single product. So you know what we're gonna do? Break it down.
Let's do it.
Exactly. So what does the UV light do?
So the UV light is actually, John, kind of two products into one.
Oh, okay.
And let me explain to you why. So the UV light is a UV germicidal, it's a UVC light, and what that does is it actually eliminates some of those viruses and those mold spores and bacteria that I mentioned earlier, right? It's the same type of technology and products that are used in sometimes dentist office, hospitals, and things like that. Yeah, right.
Absolutely. So now, does the UV light ever have to be replaced? And if so, how often?
So the UV light should be replaced about every year. The bulb itself won't really burn out that frequent. However, it loses its efficiency after a year, and Honeywell recommends to replace it about every year.
Great. So that's the UV light part of the UV air purifier, but there's also this Air Bright odor absorption. So what is Air Bright technology?
So we talked about the first part of the product,
Yeah.
the UV lights, and the Air Bright portion of this product handles those VOCs that we were talking about earlier, right?
Got it, right.
So how the Air Bright part actually works, now you might want to take some notes down again,
Sure, okay, yeah.
is through photocatalytic oxidation. Okay, PCO is you know, another acronym to throw at you.
Yeah, exactly.
And basically, that's a fancy way of saying as VOCs pass through the Air Brights, they are actually broken down through an oxidization process, and the result of that is that compound or that VOC is changed into a different structure, mainly water vapor and carbon dioxide.
Awesome. So PCO, or pretty clear observations.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what you've helped me to have today.
All right.
Some pretty clear observations. So now, where does this product get mounted?
So it actually gets mounted right inside of the duct, okay? And Honeywell actually recommends to mount it right above your A coil. That way, it serves two different purposes. One is to deal with those bacteria and viruses and VOCs that we talked about earlier as the air passes through it. But also, it actually, if you have the UV light mounted above your A coil, it will actually clean and maintain your A coil so you don't get that mold and that gunk and stuff that builds up on that.
Got it. So what's the install process like? Can one person do it?
Absolutely.
Is it a pretty easy install?
Yeah, so all you have to do is actually trace and cut out with the template provided on the duct. The unit itself actually mounts into the duct. There's 3 screws that you have to use, hook up your electrical connection, and you're good to go.
Wow, so that is a convenient, easy install. And it sounds like, too, that even though there's a lot of words associated with this product, it's got a pretty small footprint.
Oh, it does. I mean, it's, you know, only about that big. It's pretty small.
That's great. Well, when comfort pros are talking to customers about getting ready for colder weather, what are the benefits of offering humidification, filtration, and purification together as a package deal?
John, that's a really good point. For homeowners and customers that are looking for an IAQ solution, you really have to offer them the whole package. And I like to think of this and equate it to a chain, right? A chain doesn't really work unless you have all of the links connected within the chain. Same scenario here. You can't provide that full IAQ solution unless you have that full product offering.
There it is, pros. You need that full product offering, and you've already got a trusted relationship with your customers, and now this takes it to the next step where you offer them another great solution from Honeywell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Win-win for everyone.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for IAQ, which is what?
John, I don't remember what acronym
I
you
ask
have.
questions.
There you go.
Right.
Okay, so.
Or indoor air quality.
That's probably
what
what they should remember.
More so
Let's go with that.
So let's quickly review what we discussed with Ryan today. First, we talked about whole house humidification and the new Honeywell Advanced Electrode Humidifier. Then we talked about whole house filtration and ran through Honeywell's different options, from the F100 and F200 media air cleaners to the F300 electronic air cleaner. Next, we learned about whole house purification and the advantages of the Honeywell UV Air Purifier with Air Bright. And finally, we talked about how all of those things work together to help homeowners improve their indoor environments. That's a lot of stuff we discussed today. That's why we had Ryan here. Thanks so much for coming out,
Thanks
Ryan.
for having me, John.
Appreciate it. And before you go, let's tell everybody where you can learn more about these products and where they can find these great products.
So for more information on our products, please visit the Forward Thinking New Now Next website. And of course, as always, for purchasing, please visit your local distributor.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Well, folks, that was the last video in our New Now Next series for fall 2018. I hope you had as much fun as I did. And for more information about the products and solutions we featured today, check out forwardthinking.honeywell.com/new now next. Thanks for watching.